Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about the UK's new freeports and their benefits for British businesses, brought to you by the Institute of Export and International Trade. Of course, freeports have become a key strand of the UK's post-Brexit trade policy, with the Chancellor in particular a very public advocate for them. So I hope you're looking forward to hearing more about how they will work. My name is William Barnes-Graham, the Executive Editor at the Institute, and I will be your host for this afternoon. Next slide, please. Indeed, here you'll see that we'll first be hearing about the practicalities of freeports before hearing more about Liverpool Freeport in particular from representatives there. We'll then have a short case study from Wynne Aviation, who are going to be a customs site operator in Liverpool, before we answer some of your questions, though we should note that we'll try to bring in a few of your questions throughout the webinar at different points. Next slide, please. Here you'll see we have a grand gang of 4 today, including our very own Suzanne Adequim, who will be presenting an introductory presentation about how freeports generally work. Suzanne is, I think it's fair to say, becoming a regular on our webinar program now, so you're definitely in safe hands today. John Lucy from Liverpool Freeport is also a returning speaker. Some of you may remember John from a pre-pandemic webinar we ran way back in 2020 when he was at the then named Freight Transport Association, I think it was. John is now leading the Liverpool Freeport Zone project and will be telling us more about it later on. We'll then hear from David Hughes, the Director of Strategic Development at Wynne Aviation Services, who will be talking about his involvement in Liverpool Freeport, particularly the resurgent air freight movement in the region. And we're also delighted to be joined by Louise de Plassy, who will be supporting with some of the questions. Louise is a customs specialist at the Institute who is supporting the Liverpool Freeport management team and supporting businesses to apply for Freeport status too. A great panel, I hope you agree. Next slide, please. So we're going to ask a quick poll to find out a little bit more about you, our audience. So we're here asking about your understanding of the benefits of freeports and a range of options there from good to no understanding. While you are answering that poll, just a few housekeeping notes from me. Firstly, you can contact me with any comments or questions using the question panel on the control window to the right-hand side of your screen. We hope to get to a number of your questions today, though please note we cannot guarantee we will get to every question in the allocated time. As such, I'll be prioritizing questions that have relevance to the wider audience, so I won't be going into company or sector-specific queries as such. Finally, you will receive access to today's slide pack, as well as a recording of the webinar in a follow-up email we will be sending over the next day or so. I'm now going to share the results of that poll. So thank you everyone for answering. As ever, revealing the response, so only 9% of you say you have a good understanding, but 31% of you have some understanding. 39% little understanding, 21% no understanding. So perhaps unsurprising given the relative newness of the UK's freeports. But on the next slide, it's now my delight to pass over to Suzanne from the Institute to give a quick introduction to what freeports are and their practical benefits to traders. Suzanne, over to you.
Thanks very much, Will. Next slide, please. So the freeports of today are the freeports of the future. They are going to be regulatory sound, safe and ethically compliant. The World Free Zones organisations have a safe zone programme and freeports must apply the OECD's Code of Conduct for Free Zones, operating with transparency and countering illicit trade. The World Customs Organization revised Kyoto Convention outlines procedures which talk about the simplification and harmonization of customs procedures, and it sets standards around what can apply in free ports. Next slide, please. So a free port is a specific area within the UK's borders where different economic regulations apply. This is outside of the UK customs territory. There are 8 approved free ports all around England, with Scotland and Wales free ports yet to be announced. These operate at key air, sea and rail ports around the country, and the boundaries can actually extend up to 45 kilometres from the port, so they're not actually just based within that port region. Freeports offer a comprehensive package of measures comprising of tax reliefs, customs, business rates retention, planning, regeneration, innovation, and trade and investment support. Businesses can apply to be a customs site operator, a CSO, within the Freeport zone, and they too can also authorise businesses to use their CSO authorisation, and all of these businesses can apply to benefit from carrying out storage and process operations with the benefits that go with the tax and customs sites within the Freeport. Freeport will offer good supply chain visibility and resilience with the use of modern technology, track and trace technology, and strong inventory management systems. So it's about not just one business, but it's about all the business operators operating in the Freeport together. And that Freeport operation itself is going to work and operate efficiently with all of those businesses working together. Next slide, please. And Freeports as well, they're not just attractive to larger businesses, they attract all companies as well as small and medium-sized businesses. And they give all of those businesses the opportunity to benefit from the inward investment, foreign direct investment, and it's an opportunity for businesses to upskill and grow their trade. Liverpool has a great geographical location. It's well placed in the northwest of England, and it has both deep sea and short sea access. It also has access to international airports within its Freeport boundary for both Liverpool and Manchester, as well as freight rail access and the nearby motorway corridors as well for road transportation. This gives excellent connectivity with links to trade and transport corridors, not only within the UK, but also to the external markets for the Far East, and the Americas and Europe by all modes of transport. And this will improve market access with good access to the home economy, wider markets and countries. The Freeport will bring new investment to the local economy, and with the 3 nominated tax sites, these are important to consider alongside the government levelling up agenda as well. And with many businesses keen to learn how the Freeport can help their business, the right industry needs product at the right time, and there are emerging new business opportunities that can benefit from the Freeport investment, such as clean energy, nutritional food, and recyclable trade. And we mustn't forget trade in services. It's not just about trading goods and having the context of services, so effectively manufacturing and services combined, which many companies are now working with these days. The opportunities also create hubs, for example, for research and production zones, and we see more within the Freeport and the free trade zone concept of research and development taking place, very much planning for the future. They give the opportunity to create centres of innovation and excellence, which can enhance value creation and value chains as well. Next slide, please. So a CSO site is also known as a free zone within the Freeport. The boundary of their zone will go up to the boundary of their site. Therefore, there will be lots of operating authorised free zones within a Freeport itself. Goods moving into an individual free zone will benefit from duty suspension until they enter the UK domestic market. Duty inversion gives operators the ability to calculate input duties based on either the value of inputs or the finished goods, whichever is most beneficial, unless the goods are subject to anti-dumping duty. All goods that are re-exported and never brought into free circulation in the UK are duty exempt, unless they are subject to duty drawback clauses under the relevant trade agreement. So duty and VAT would never be paid. Goods can also move between free zones and UK free ports within the UK under declaration by conduct, and they're not subject to the requirements of the transit special procedure. There are also no time limits for storing or processing goods in a free port, unlike temporary storage where the maximum storage is 90 days. And a customs guarantee is also not required to cover the duty and tax of the goods stored in the Freeport. So there's actually some very good benefits to be had by all. All the operations allowed in a Freeport are covered by one single authorisation, and they can be managed through the operator's own records. so they don't need to employ a specialist system to handle the movements. The goods must be declared to customs at the point of arrival, and this can be done by a simplified declaration, telling customs that the goods are moving into the Freeport procedure. Under CFSP, traders would normally create a supplementary declaration by the 4th working day of the following month after the import. But for goods entering into the Freeport, that supplementary declaration doesn't need to be done. Authorised businesses can utilise the benefits of a CSO, which would be an investment opportunity for traders to open up their site and offer redundant space or warehousing for other authorised businesses to use. Next slide, please. Within the Freeport, as we've mentioned, there are 3 tax zones that are available in the Liverpool area. The tax zones are designated areas of land which entice new business operations and generate additional added value investment. They are typically 3 sites within the Freeport, and the following benefits only refer to businesses that are setting up inside a tax zone. It will encourage inward investment, enable sustainable job creation, and regenerate areas of deprivation. It will allow the region to develop a globally significant cluster of port, manufacturing, logistics and innovation activity. The key tax benefits that the government offer in a tax zone are capital allowances, relief from stamp duty land tax, business rates relief, and employer national insurance contributions for new employees up to £25,000. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we're going to look at an overview of the Freeport process. Next. So we start off, the goods are dispatched from the exporter's premises in an overseas country. And then next. These goods are then transported to the UK operator. They come into us by sea, air, road or rail. The operator will pre-lodge a simplified declaration with HMRC. And then next, when the goods arrive, they are free of customs formalities at the port or the airport, and then they can ship straight to the free zone. Any inspection of the cargo is carried out by the CSO within their own site, and this is for safety and security reasons. Goods can move unrestricted as well within the Freeport, which is advantageous if an operator works with another company within the Freeport for outsourcing and processing, for example. Next, please. The processing of the goods would take place, if this was relevant, and when the operator receives an order from their customer. And next. Then the goods can be released into free circulation in the UK or re-exported to the overseas importer. If the goods move into free circulation, the operator will need to check if there is a trade deal with the exporter country that could benefit from preference at import. If not, then at that point, the UK import tariffs would still apply, and import VAT as well would also be due on the goods at that point. This is when the supplementary declaration could be done to bring those goods into free circulation. When the goods are re-exported, then they will not be subject to import duty or VAT, and they can just leave the Freeport. Next slide, please. So if you're thinking about becoming a CSO, it's best to gather as much information as you can on how a Freeport could work for your operations. You can speak to our dedicated account manager who will provide you with all the information, and you can use the CSO checklist and approval flow to check what you need to start the application process. We have a HMRC CSO introduction pack that gives further details, and if you're ready to proceed, you would complete an expression of interest form that gets sent to HMRC. If you are not AEOS approved, then a Customs Freeport Safety and Security questionnaire will need to be completed. HMRC will then line up calls to run through the form and through that application, and then they'd make arrangements to conduct a site audit. Our dedicated account manager is available to assist you with ongoing support with your application process. Next slide, please. We can't actually assume that every business going into Freeport is going to have that full understanding about the customs procedures and trade. Therefore, the Institute of Export and international trade, we're working in conjunction with Liverpool Freeport to offer a dedicated Freeports telephone support service to offer traders the support they need with any day-to-day issues or any admin support that's required. We're also working to develop apprenticeships and qualifications for businesses in Freeport and the local economy, so that this can create local skilled workers for job opportunities that arise in the Freeport, which will be especially important as the Freeport expands and more businesses come on board and more investment is attracted into the area. We are supporting the development of trade corridors and the ecosystem of trust as part of the government's Customs 2025 vision for digitalising the borders. This will allow for customs processes to be moved away from the physical frontier and transactions to take place in real time to speed up the border clearance process. The IOE and IT have regular news feeds of trade opportunities and developments in trade facilitation in the UK and internationally. We're also helping businesses with gap analysis and risk assessments of their compliance procedures by carrying out customs health checks. This type of information will be of importance to the application process to be able to demonstrate your level of customs compliance to HMRC. And as we're working with many traders across a number of industries, we're in a good position to act as a voice for business, to pass that feedback on to HMRC and also on to other government departments that we're working with. So if following the presentation today, you think that Freeports may offer benefits to your company, then do please get in touch with our commercial team on the email address that's here on the screen for a free discussion as to how we can help you maximise your Freeport potential. Back to you, Will. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Great to hear a little bit more about how Freeport's actually going to operate. Obviously, it's been a theory for a long time now, so great to see some details there. I'm just going to launch a second poll. So we're just asking you, which of the following benefits of Freeports is most valuable to your business? Local investment and jobs, streamlined customs processes, taxation benefits, business rates relief, or other. Feel free to type in if you vote other. Just while people are answering that poll, thank you everyone for the questions sent in so far. I will ask a couple of them now. One which has come from John, Suzanne, is regarding food and drink companies in particular. So he's asking, or he'd like to understand a bit more about the benefits of using a Freeport in relation to food products.
Well, Freeports actually lend themselves particularly well to food manufacturers. You're able to import raw materials, but you can also bring in goods from within the UK market as well. So both import and domestic goods can be stored and used together within the Freeport. The raw materials and finished goods can both be stored under the Freeport authorisation, and you've got that free time. You've got no restrictive time on the storage, and the goods can be held indefinitely. The authorisation also allows traders to carry out any processing, so you can manufacture your food within that Freeport as well. And you don't need a separate authorisation. So if you had customs warehousing and inward processing, you would need 2 authorisations. But the benefit of Freeport is just that one authorisation allows you to carry out the storage and the processing. And when the goods are released from the Freeport to the local market into the free circulation, that's when you make your declaration and pay the duty and the VAT. But you can also look at that duty inversion that we mentioned. So you can have the choice between the duty rate of the imported products or the duty rate of the finished products. So whichever benefits the company the most can be applied. So it's going to be very good for anybody in the food and the drinks industry that's going to manufacture and want to bring those goods into the Freeport.
And we had a follow-up question from Marie, actually, which is asking about sanitary and phytosanitary checks and documentation. How do Freeports relate to those requirements?
So traders are still going to have to meet with those requirements, but at the moment we do have certain easements in place with goods coming in from the EU, but goods coming in from the rest of the world are still subject to those requirements, and they will need to be met before the goods can go through customs and then into the free zone. So although the free zone doesn't give that access to the free circulation, the requirements do still need to be met so that they are ready for when those goods do move into free circulation. So yes, still need to comply with whatever regulations you have in place for bringing those products into the market.
Thank you, Suzanne. I hope that's been helpful, Marie. Just going to close the poll and share the results. So 38% of you saying streamlined customs processes. Probably not surprising given we are with a group of traders on the line, but 27% of you following with taxation benefits. Suzanne, any surprise there? Is that about what you'd expect?
It's great to see that people are going to benefit from the streamlined customs processes. Absolutely, it's going to help those traders with the simplified processes and being able to have just that one authorization in place. The tax benefits as well, it's good to see that people are thinking about that investment that they could potentially expand their business into the tax zones and benefit from that. So yeah, very good to see.
Thank you, Suzanne. And yeah, we look forward to hearing more from you in the Q&A later on. But now on the next slide, it's my delight to welcome John Lucy to talk about one of the first of the 8 UK new freeports, of course, in the beautiful city of Liverpool. John is leading the Liverpool Freeport Zone project, which is hoping to capitalise on the port being a UK gateway to transatlantic trade, and which it is hoped could become one of the largest regional regeneration projects in decades, particularly leading on zero carbon energy and transport strategies. All sounds very exciting. So, John, over to you.
Thanks very much, William. And interesting poll there, because the way we see this rolling out as the Freeport story develops is, yes, the tax sites are very much turbocharging the development into these brownfield sites as per the design of the Freeport's procedures. But we really see the longevity of this in the customs zones, and I'll touch upon this a bit more during the presentation. But this is an area which I think in Freeports, so this current Freeport model is being sort of critiqued a little bit, saying that the benefits aren't enough. But I think, particularly in the Liverpool region, we're seeing a completely different side to this, and our custom sites operators, our pipeline list it grows and grows by the week, really, and just looking at our wonderful new holding slide there for these presentations. Obviously, international trade is at the heart of all the Freeport models, but also in terms of the green energy sector. And ourselves will be creating a customs, not a customs academy, a Freeport Skills Academy. So we'll be working with the universities. We already started this work to create a Freeport and Global Trade BSc. And also we'll be introducing some net zero projects, particularly in line with decarbonising the road freight within the city region, and also looking at modal shift. Obviously, we're very fortunate, as we'll see on the next slides, that we've got 3 global gateways: the port, the airport, and we also have a very substantial multi-rail terminal with considerable scope to expand our road to rail activities in the city region. So these are all sort of behind the headlines of the tax and the customs benefits. There's a huge area of work going on into these other areas. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So just to reiterate what Suzanne said, really, what the high level objectives for the Freeport is, obviously we need to create jobs and we need to regenerate these areas. But at the heart of how that's going to be done is re-establishing the Freeport as national hubs for global trade. And behind that then sits the innovation work streams. How does that fit in? Well, in our particular area, we're looking at building a really attractive environment for our existing large manufacturers and large businesses, but also looking at bringing in some real cutting edge businesses that don't actually exist in Europe, never mind in the UK. When we've been setting our sights particularly into the Middle East and Southeast Asia to see some of the new digital industries that are set up over there, and so we're very much aligning our strategy with the old industries and some very cutting edge new industries to our tax sites. So very much a combination of the old and the new. So next slide, please. And again, just to reiterate what Suzanne said, at the heart of this, the business end really is the tax site. So we've got hundreds of hectares of development land ready now on 3 distinct areas, which are redlined in terms of HM Treasury. Apologies if there's any sort of background noise. I'm in a conference hall at the moment, so it was very quiet. So everyone just suddenly decides to come in. Custom sites, obviously this has been dealt with in Suzanne in some detail, and we'll hear from David as a real nice, clear, crystal cut working example of how that's going to be applied within our region. And at the heart of all this, where we are now, we've all been allocated set-up funding from central governments, in our case through the Combined Authority of Liverpool, and on the completion of our successful completion of our final business case and the designation of our first custom site, we will then be eligible for our 25 million seed fund investments into our Liverpool City region, which is already earmarked into projects as outlined in our business case. So next slide, please. So just for those, just to reiterate where the Freeports are at the moment, that's where they are in the UK, and obviously we now got the bidding has started for Scotland, so there are going to be we think two Freeports called Greenports. It's the same, basically exactly the same, but different naming in Scotland. Also for Wales and eventually for Northern Ireland, and particularly of interest for ourselves, if you can very clearly demonstrated on this map here, there are connections with Northern Ireland. Belfast is very clear. We've got straight across the Irish Sea into the port of Belfast, and we're working with IOE and HMRC to see whether some of the customs benefits for movements of goods in between Freeport and Freeport that we're going to be able to see on the mainland, how that could possibly benefit UK Northern Ireland trade as well. So that's where it's ongoing behind the scenes really over the next 2 or 3 years. Next slide, please. Briefly again, in terms of geography, Liverpool, its geography has always been aligned to North America. You know, 100 years ago, we was the largest trading port and the largest trading entity the world has ever seen, and that geography hasn't gone away really. We're very strong connections to North America. 50% almost of UK traders with North America, almost 50% of that goes through or from Liverpool. So we're very much looking to North America in terms of partnering with other ports, Freeports over there, and we've got some really strong business missions aligned up for later in this year for US businesses coming to Liverpool and Liverpool business in connections to the US. And if you look to the other side of the world, so Southeast Asia, we're also seeing now some strong interest from some of the Middle Eastern countries with the connectivity into Liverpool, and also as a springboard into North America. And we actually share some of the same shipping lines as into the in that Southeast Asia basin there. So these are huge amounts of work going on behind the scenes in terms of improving this trade connectivity and what we can offer shippers, traders, importers and exporters right across the globe. Next slide, please. So what Liverpool Freeport isn't, it isn't a super port. You can see the port of Liverpool there to the top left corner of the screen. We're actually a 45-kilometre zone, so we stretch out as far as right down the end of the Manchester Ship Canal to Port Salford. So we've got a really challenging area this, but within that area then, as was mentioned before, we've got 3 distinct sites with almost 800 acres of development land ready. We're hoping to cluster various industries in these. So we see Wirral Waters, you see on the Birkenhead side there. We still have a shipbuilding sector, and we're seeing a strong interest from sort of high-tech maritime sector businesses into this area. 3MG at Widnes, that's where the multimodal rail headers there, and Parkside, just down towards the M62, M6 crossroads. This is probably our biggest site. It's a former colliery there, and we've already started to get some serious inquiries for there. So right now we think there would be clusters around advanced manufacturing and logistics type operations at Parkside, and advanced maritime sector type industries in Wirral Waters. So you can see it's quite a challenging area in terms of the scope of this, and all the Freeports are the same, by the way. So everyone is being designated 3 tax sites. But of interest to this audience is the number of custom site operators, which is unlimited within our zone. And after what we thought might be a difficult sell, we suddenly realised, and industries and businesses are coming to us on a weekly basis now, where the customs offering is growing and growing in terms of importance now, particularly as the international supply chains around the world is basically be sort of broken, and new supply chains of trade with new countries and new modes of transport are being introduced. And as we're seeing now from this sort of turbulent 3 years of disruption, everything is changing now. So what we hadn't really considered was the sheer scale of application of some of the customer side benefits. And I'm talking about sort of new energy suppliers coming from Southeast Asia because of the problems with the war in Europe, etc. So this is a developing story for us, and it's one that's really sort of taken a hold, and is one that we really appreciate our partnership with the IOE and our Louise, our local consultants on the ground. So next slide, please. So again, our key aims definitely is the business end of this is regeneration. We expect to create somewhere at least 10,500 jobs in a relatively short period as our tax sites become developed. But we're also very much embracing innovation in terms of the technology and new business sectors to come to our region to sort of complement our existing industries, and very much in terms of creating some net zero or decarbonising road logistics within our region, which complements what the port is doing with itself, and also what the maritime industry is looking at doing, and of course in line with the local combined authorities net zero strategies as well. So next slide, please. So our initial target markets, and really I suppose this slide is rapidly becoming obsolete almost on a monthly basis now. So we started off with our big names really. We're very heavy in the automotive sector. We've got a significant biomanufacturing and chemical industry in the region, and surprisingly to some, we have a very strong food and drink manufacturing base within the Liverpool City region. What's really coming to the fore now, what the Freeports is pushing, initially indirectly, but now directly, because we've seen the opportunities there, is in terms of the new digitalisation of cross-border trade, e-commerce. We've seen basically the science fiction of e-commerce in various countries around the world, and these business models don't exist in the UK yet, and we're very keen, and we're talking it's a high level with various governments around the world to see if we can bring these into our area. So this is very much we're seeing innovation in terms of new industries really starting to take control of our strategic direction. Next slide, please. So in terms of time, I won't really rush through this. I think the slides will be shared later on, but you can see really very much there's a very strict protocols around the Freeports, and as Suzanne mentioned earlier on, in terms of environmental sustainability, social values, etc. So not only are we looking at regenerating our areas, but we're looking at regeneration in the best possible way, with the highest opportunities for local people, and create the perfect conditions for international businesses. Next slide, please. And that's my last slide. Thanks very much, William.
Thank you, John. Yeah, really interesting to see just how much is going on in Liverpool already, and some really exciting developments there. So thank you for that presentation. On the next slide, you'll see that I'm actually going to launch the poll anyway. So if you like what you've heard about Liverpool Freeports, the question is asking, would you like to see more Freeports across the UK? So I'll give you a couple minutes to answer that poll. But John, we're getting loads of questions in, so thank you everyone in the audience for the questions. I'll start with one from Peter, and he's asked that he said that most of his relevant imports come from Felixstowe and Southampton. Is Liverpool Freeport a viable situation for Peter? I mean, and I guess more broadly, can companies in other parts of the country make benefit of Liverpool Freeport?
Yeah, of course, and this is one of the benefits of the Freeports, because contrary to sort of popular opinion, we aren't competing against other Freeports, because our geographies and our trading partners and our motor transport are all different. So, for example, for Felixstowe, Southampton, from our 3MG multimodal hub, we've got direct rail connections to virtually all the other Freeports. So, very much the Freeports will be assisting easing the friction at the borders, so that the containers can come in from the vessels directly onto trains and come overnight into 3MG, for example. Because don't forget, the vast majority of containers arriving in the south, a good percentage of those will be coming to the northwest of the UK, which is why, you know, port-centric logistics, which is a whole different conversation, is very much of the direction of travel at the moment in terms of cost, because the cost of moving any containers on inland freight within the UK at the moment is I can't remember what the figures are, but I know there's been something like 50+% increase particularly from the southern congested ports or the eastern congested ports. So we're seeing as a huge sort of sea change in the logistics, and also in short sea shipping from some of the southern and the eastern ports on feeder vessels round to Liverpool as well. In fact, one of Liverpool's ports. Biggest growth areas this year is actually being on feeder traffic, which is, it's a sign of the times of where we are in terms of global supply chain disruption.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I guess the point is the UK is so connected, but of course supply chains go through and in and out in different ways. I mean, the question which often comes up around Freeports is around kind of displacement, I suppose. So if I have a business located in a different part of the country, can I just pack up and relocate to, say, Liverpool Freeport to benefit from the tax benefits, for example?
No, and obviously this is always at the cornerstone of the ethos of the UK Freeport model. Very, very strict rules and regulations about displacement. So we are not in the business of attracting businesses over county lines or even from over different parts of the country. There's scope for some businesses within the region to create and expand within a tax zone, but the criteria and the rules around displacements are very, very, very strong. So it's I'm not saying it's impossible, but if it came to light, both the Freeports and the tax authorities within the UK can prevent the issue of any tax easements on those sites if anything was to happen like that. So it's basically this is not a displacement tool. This is for attracting new businesses.
Thank you, John. That's a really important point, I think. So thank you for answering that question. Just to give you a quick view of the poll response, 70% of you like what you see and would like to see more Freeports across the UK. Just under a quarter of you saying it makes a difference to your particular business. But 5% of you, only 5% of you saying you're either content with the number of Freeports or maybe you don't like them. But it seems as though most of you are in favour, so that's encouraging to see. But conscious of time, so we'll hear more from John hopefully in a moment in the Q&A. Before then, though, on the next slide, it is my delight to welcome David Hughes from Wynne Aviation, who will be one of the first custom site operators in the Liverpool Freeport. And David, as well as having vast experience in the logistics industry, is also a filmmaker, I believe, with over 15 short films and has even won accreditation at the Berlin Film Festival. David, pleasure to have you with us. Sadly, we'll have to get around to watching your films another time. But for now, over to you for a couple of slides, I believe. So over to you, David.
Well, it's nice to say hello to everybody. I'm David Hughes from Wynne Aviation Services. We're a third-generation family-run business with our main site at Liverpool John Lennon Airport. We do also have sites at Warrington and the Isle of Man, with partners in Dublin, Belfast, and we are speaking at the moment with a partner who has 2 locations, one in Frankfurt and one in Cole. Next slide, please. Right, this slide is obviously our location at Liverpool Airport. This slide shows the location for the proposed Freeport site here. We've negotiated with Liverpool Airport for this site, which is just under 10 acres of land. It's to the west of the main terminal. Initially, we are looking for the southern section to be designated first as the Freeport site, coming online very soon. Liverpool Airport are then going to clear the north section of the site for either an extension to the Freeport or expansion of the cargo port in general, or both. Next slide, please. I'm not sure, will you have some questions for me?
I do. I mean, I guess the main question I have for you, David, is you'll be acting as a custom site operator within Liverpool Freeport, but can you say a little bit more about what this would involve and what drew you to becoming a CSA?
Yeah, if I could maybe answer the second part to that question first, what drew us to be wanting to be a custom site operator? Well, our first goal was to establish Liverpool Airport as a cargo destination. It literally fallen off the map. In 2017, the airport was handling roughly 80,000 kilos of cargo per year. Since then, we're very proud to say that we've built this to 1.5 million kilos just within the first 6 months of 2022. So we're very pleased with how that's gone. Also, this came after a very, very challenging time during the pandemic and then followed by Brexit. But we actually have a long-term ambition, and that's to turn the airport cargo facility into an international hub. We want to build an air bridge to Dublin, Belfast, the Isle of Man, and to the European mainland, initially through our partners that we're talking to in Frankfurt and Cologne. To make this successful, we have to be able to offer the full package, a full range, and of great benefit would be the Freeport. On the second part of your question, what will this involve? Well, it will be involving us accepting goods on a very strict supervision. We'll record entry information for Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. We'll then store goods like you would in any kind of warehouse. And we'll be offering, for example, break bulk services. This may be into the UK market for some of the product, and maybe some other parts of the product being straight exported out of the country. Or it could just be sequencing goods as they are needed. So we supply the UK market on request. We'll also be offering reworks where products require maybe slight modification or even minor assembly. And then again, the final product could be possibly exported straight out of the country or even into the UK market as and when it is required. And this could give some benefits for a reduction in duty on the final product rather than its individual parts. And then, of course, we will be making all the exit documentation for Her Majesty's Revenue Customs as anything either in the UK or re-exported. I hope that answers that.
I think it sure does. It's not often I get answered with the next slide, which is fantastic. And those graphs are absolutely fascinating. That surge during the pandemic and Brexit is quite remarkable. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've got a couple more questions, David, if I may.
Yes.
I mean, what interest has there been from businesses looking to operate within your custom site so far, anyway?
Well, the first thing I'd say was how surprised we were at the level of interest. It's mainly been a question and answer session with most of those customers. I think with this being a new project, we've often had to refer the questions we've been asked to HMRC to get clarification. But one thing we've noted is that when we go back to the customer with the answers to the questions, this automatically generates more questions. But what I've noticed myself personally is it's almost a light bulb moment. You see them take in the information and then they can realize the benefits for their own operations. And you can see the level of interest increase dramatically. And obviously the number of questions that they then fire at you, which is very exciting at the moment.
Questions is the name of the day at the moment. I think the Institute can sympathise with that over the last little period. And could you say just a little bit more about the importance of Liverpool Airport, I suppose, being part of this Freeport? Because it does seem, as you can see in the slide, incredibly important.
Yeah, I would say, because as you know, the Freeports act as a secure customs zone. And the aim of Liverpool Freeport is obviously to create a hub for international trade. Obviously, what we're wanting to stimulate investment and create jobs is the long-term aim for all of us. And I think for that hub to work, you've got to offer a multimodal solution. So you've got to say to all your potential customers that you are able to satisfy different modes of transport. So obviously we've got the port here, both deep sea and short sea. We've got fantastic rail connections and we've got really good road connections. So we complement it with the air side of things. So we'll be able to offer both direct dedicated cargo aircraft into the city region and also consolidated consignments coming in through air. So then as a whole, I think we're able to offer the full package. And I think that will be a benefit, not just to us, but I see it as a two-way street, as a benefit for all the other operators in the Freeport area.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. That's really interesting to hear about the multimodal aspect as well. I was hearing similar points at I was at the conference multimodal last week or 2 weeks ago, and other Freeport operators were saying similar things. So that's really interesting to hear. Thank you. But at this point, on the next slide, it's my delight to welcome back the wider panel just to answer a few more of your questions. So the first one is from Steve. Whose company is based in Liverpool, and he's asking, is there anyone he can speak to regarding becoming a tax or customs site operator who can help me understand what it means for his business and the process? And I guess, Louise, we've not heard from you yet, so it's my delight to put that question to you first.
Sure, good afternoon everybody. So I am Louise de Blasi and I am the Liverpool's dedicated customs site account manager. So basically what I do is I work with the Freeport management team and also have a direct route to HMRC. And I am actively supporting a growing portfolio of businesses who are interested in the Liverpool Freeport and becoming a CSO. And those companies are all at different stages of their journey at the moment. So what I do is I take on board the initial inquiry and I work with the businesses to fully understand the customs benefits for their current operations, looking at the full potential and identify competitive advantages by using the Freeport. We also take a more in-depth dive looking at future planning, current supply chain, and address any technical customs inquiries. And then once we've established whether the Freeport and the CSO status is right for that company, then what we will do, I will support the company throughout the application process. I will arrange site visits, virtual meetings, whilst liaising with HMRC. So really a hand-holding process throughout. So if any companies out there today who listen to the webinar and do want a further discussion, please do reach out to IOE Freeport Technical Helpline or certainly the Liverpool management team. I will be happy to have them discussions.
Thank you, Louise. Suzanne, I've got a question for you. It's a few people have asked it. Christopher and Lynn have asked about SMEs. So to what extent do you think SMEs can actually benefit from Freeports? Christopher says it seems as though some of the benefits may apply more to larger or overseas companies wanting to export into the UK. So yeah, he's wanting to know a bit more about the support for SMEs in particular through Freeports.
Yes, so I think a lot of people do sort of instantly think that, you know, the Freeports are large, they must only benefit the larger companies, and certainly with the tax sites looking at the inward investment. But actually, the Freeport arrangements that we're looking at now do benefit the smaller, the medium-sized businesses that want to operate, and it's there to encourage them to do the local business and actually bring investment into the area. So the businesses can apply to become a custom site operator on their own, or they could actually benefit from being an authorised business on a CSO site. So, for example, a local logistics company that's operating a CSO as a 3PL, where they can then take advantages of the benefits of their CSO authorisation. This can then have a knock-on effect through their supply chain. They can gain those additional advantages, such as the cash flow benefits from not having to pay that duty and VAT upfront. They can also then benefit from the growth in business, which in turn then does help grow the local economy, and also the local community, as David and John have mentioned today. And with that unique employment offerings, you can take benefit from the qualifications and the training that's available that we're going to be offering at the IOE. So this all offers great help to SMEs to benefit from working in a Freeport.
Thanks, Suzanne. And something you touched on there raises another question from Isabel about 3PL warehouses. She's asked, can Freeports benefit from 3PL warehouses? From what you're saying, I assume they can?
Yes, absolutely. So 3PLs are ideal for this. So they can apply for that the CSO status, and then they can offer those benefits out to other companies through the authorised business use. Where companies are operating a temporary storage facility, so we see quite a lot of those at the ports, they do only have 90 days to use this facility. But with a Freeport authorisation, then they can hold those goods indefinitely. They also don't need a customs guarantee to cover any duties and taxes within the site as well. So a couple of good benefits there. The goods will need to be checked for security and safety when they do arrive. So any containers that come in do currently need to be devanned, but they can be reloaded into the containers for storage in them, or they could be put to storage in a warehouse. So 3PL operators do have a couple of opportunities. If they've got available land on their site, they could use it to store those containers, but also they could be using any warehouse, or they could also offer out warehouse space to other companies to use. So once the security checks have been taken, and the authorised businesses would just need to provide details of their movements of the goods that they've got to the CSO, so that they know what's being held on the site. The goods can also be entered into the simplified declarations we've mentioned without the need for the immediate supplementary declaration at that point. And if the CSO works with other CSOs in the area, then the goods can be transferred between them as well. So they can bring things from other different hubs from within the area as well. And this can all be done by the conduct declaration without the need to seal the vehicles or apply for a transit document as well. So yes, it does offer great benefits to 3PLs to look at operating in the area.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne. I hope that was helpful, Isabel. A really interesting question from Joe. And a few people have been asking about the US in particular. So he says, Liverpool historically has been a key port for firms moving goods to the US. Will this continue to be the case in the new Freeport era? And what other markets will firms trading at Liverpool Freeport be trading with? David, I think let's start with you on that one, and then hopefully we can bring on John as well. But David, do you want to take that one first?
Well, I think they're quite right about the US and the past and present trade links. Obviously, with where the port is situated geographically, it's on the west coast. Obviously, it's always been a strong transatlantic trading point. What we've found about the Freeport concept, it's been a lot easier to sell to people who've either got a US base or a US connection. They are quite au fait with the Freeport concept. They understand it well, and so they see the benefits. It's quite an easy sell to them. The other market, of course, is Europe. We have a huge relationship with the automotive industry, with pharmaceutical and with industrial manufacturers throughout Europe. And we're looking to try and form an air bridge between the USA and Europe. So I think there'll be very strong links with the US, definitely.
And John, do you have anything to add to that from a overall perspective?
Yeah, sure. I think the it's just a lack of awareness in the UK. It's been such a long time, and we've been out the Freeport free zone loop for so long. But there's over 5,000 Freeports free zones around the world. You know, they are a big thing, and I've only been in post for 6-7 months now, but I was surprised really when we're talking to other countries, the conversations don't get to the bottom of the coffee, and they say we're interested, we really want to get involved with this because they understand the concept. To them, it's a very, it's a really good tool for either for regeneration or for increasing trade or easing that trade that already exists. So the conversations, as David said, they've been. I didn't realize how easy it would be, sort of thing. So the international investor developer relationships that we're working with and hope to partner with, that's been the easiest sell of all, really. And we're very much focusing our attention on the North American market right now to make sure we get the right partners at the right time before we start looking to Southeast Asia. So our strategic direction is North America first, and then to Southeast Asia.
Thanks, John. Thanks, David. I mean, the 5,000 freeports internationally, but a few people ask questions referencing other freeports overseas, and I'll try to group this as much as possible. To what extent is the UK learning from freeports which are being implemented overseas? And also, to what extent, how is the UK's approach going to be different? I suppose that's one for you, John.
A brilliant question. All slightly different because all countries tend to do it slightly different. Being UK, we've got a very challenging model because we've got the added challenge of skills, net zero, innovation added to the commercial model. So there's nothing simple about the UK Freeport rollout, really. As the UK rep for the World Free Zones Organisation, yes, that's absolutely what we're doing. We're embedding the best practice from the other freeports around the world, and in terms of our rollouts of our delivery now. So we're very much focused on delivery of our turning our business plans into reality for the next 12 months and onwards, sort of thing. So what we're very conscious of is the time factor on this. We've got a very short time to get this rolled out to bring maximum benefit, not only to the region, but to sort of embrace the situation the world finds itself in now, because by sheer coincidence, the Freeports have found themselves in the right place at the right time in terms of the total disruptions for the world supply chains. And as this is bouncing back now in terms of the new opportunities is coming, the Freeports are being seen by most of our trading partners to be the catalyst to basically turbocharge this regeneration. And so we're very much in running flat out to make sure this gets going as fast as possible.
Thanks, John. Really interesting. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to ask just a couple of really practical, right in our ballpark, customs questions about freeports to either Louise or Suzanne. So I'm going to start with one from David. I'm going to put it to Suzanne first. It's just a clarification. So he says, when goods leave the Freeport and a supplementary declaration is required, is this completed in the same way as under, say, customs rate simplified procedures?
Yes, so the Freeports allow people to bring their goods in and just do that first simplified frontier declaration. So the goods cannot move into the Freeport without having that done. What the Freeports then allow traders to do is to then delay the need for the supplementary declaration. When the goods finally leave the Freeport, then the supplementary declaration would then be submitted at that point. That's when you would be declaring your movement into free circulation and then paying any duties and taxes. If you then decide you want to actually re-export those goods and they never come into the UK, then our understanding is that those traders wouldn't actually be required to complete that supplementary declaration. So yes, the process, you should still talk to HMRC when it moves out of that Freeport, then finally under UK customs control.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I'll do one last question. It's from Greta or Greta. I hope I said that correctly, at least once. And I'll put it to Louise first, and Suzanne, obviously you're on hand as well. But she asked, do you need to be sited within a Freeport, i.e. have an office there, in order to benefit, for example, for the VAT or customs benefits?
So I'll answer that one. You do have to be within the 45-kilometre area that John showed earlier on is on the map for Liverpool. So as long as your business is in there, within there, and you are established, then it would be a case of going through the authorisation process with HMRC to qualify. So certainly worth a further conversation on that. So yeah, if you'd like to reach out, we'll certainly be happy to do that.
Excellent. Well, I think on that note, the witching hour is upon us. So if we move on to the last slide, I'd now like to thank Suzanne, John, David, and Louise for your time today, as some really interesting insights and updates about how the UK's freeports and custom sites within them are going to operate. And so we do hope you found that useful. I think you've gone too far. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, thank you everyone for presenting, and thank you to the audience for so many questions. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to everything today, but we will be looking at them afterwards and seeing what we can do to answer some of them in some way or another. The Institute continues to be on hand to support businesses trading compliantly during what is an ever-changing trade landscape. Of course, there's Brexit, there's climate change, there's the war in Ukraine. There's so many things which are disrupting supply chains, as noted. So export.org.uk is where you can find out more information about the services we provide. Just a reminder, we will be sending all registrants a recording of today's webinar along with a copy of the slides over the next day or so. Please do get in touch if for any reason this email doesn't come through to your main inbox. As you leave, as ever, please do let us know what you thought of today's webinar and any suggestions for future topics by completing the exit survey. But for now, from all of us, I hope you've enjoyed this webinar and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.